Yo, what's going on, guys? Watomarmelon back here again with another market watch for November 13th. As always, if you guys do enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Also, clicking the eBay links in the description before making a purchase on eBay doesn't add any cost to you, and it does help support the channel, so I appreciate that every time you guys do look for that stuff on eBay. So the first thing we want to look at today are the secret Pharaoh's rares from Majestic Maidens, right? I think that's, or Magnificent Mavens, excuse me. And so there are a bunch of these things. My understanding is that each individual one is about as difficult to pull as a specific Starlight rare. So the individual secret Pharaoh's rares are pretty difficult to get. I also have a feeling that Magnificent Mavens was an underordered set relative to core sets that typically have Starlight rares. So I imagine the circulation of these cards is going to be significantly less than any given Starlight in a core set. I just think that that's going to be the case. My opinion on these things, I do think they look a lot better than the Ultra Pharaoh rares, but the Ultra Pharaoh rares just look like Ultra rares. I mean, I am not a huge fan of this rarity. I think it's very subtle, the actual Millennium foiling, but I don't view this as a very aesthetically appealing rarity. I think it's interesting. I think there are certain cards that I think it does work better on. For example, the seal of Orichalcos. I think the Millennium characters make sense on the card, and it doesn't look that bad. Additionally, with the Egyptian God card, same thing. But for some of them, like for example, Dark Magician Girl, it's just the next Dark Magician Girl chase card in an ever expanding line of chase Dark Magician Girls. And it begs the question, this isn't going to be the last one. And so are you really going to spend, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on each new rarity of Dark Magician Girl? There was not so long ago the Ghost Rare version of this card. Now there's the Secret Pharaoh's Rare. If they do a Collector's Rare, are you going to buy that one too? If they do an Ultimate Rare, are you going to buy that one too? If they introduce a new rarity for Dark Magician Girl, or there's a new rarity down the line, are you going to buy that too? If they do a Starlight Rare, are you going to buy that one? And so I don't understand. One, I think they're really overusing certain Yu-Gi-Oh cards to try and sell new rarities. It's just you can't keep printing the same cards in every new rarity, or you can't keep printing a lot of these DMs era collectible cards in this rarity, because eventually it just devalues any of the modern versions. And I think the Ghost Rare of this thing is now competing with a Secret Pharaoh's Rare, and who knows what ends up winning. I think the Ghost Rare looks a lot better, but you can see that the lowest listing is at 310, the market price is at 330. I imagine that's going to go down a bit, although because of how it really depends on how much of Magnificent Mavens was ordered, because there's so many of these Secret Pharaoh rares that pulling any specific one is quite difficult, as I said before. And so if the set in total was underordered because people didn't know that these Secret Pharaoh rares were going to be, one, so difficult to pull, two, that they were going to have the DM era collectibles in them, such as Dark Magician Girl and Blue Eyes. So these things might appreciate if it ends up being the case that there aren't very many of these things to go around. As you can see, there are only 13 listings. Now, the set hasn't been out for very long, so I expect that more of them are going to appear, but who knows? I mean, I really don't know what to think about these Secret Pharaoh rares. I am not going to go after any of them, but I'm a little hesitant to buy any of them, especially given how expensive they are. I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars for the better ones. As I said, the Seal of Orichalcos is one that I do. This is a pretty iconic card from the show, and it hasn't really had that high rarity printing. Obviously, there's like the UDE printing that was given out, not actually a TCG card, but that thing is insanely expensive, so I don't expect anyone to really be treating that as a set card in any capacity. So maybe that one is something to look at, but still at $120. I don't know how many people are going to buy it. Rhoda, that recently had a collector, or not recently, but a year ago had a collector's rare in King's Court. Now you're giving it a Secret Pharaoh's rare. When does it stop? Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. I mean, that card literally has an ultimate rare. It has a ghost rare. It has the original print secret. Like, at some point, you got to stop printing it in these new rarities. It's just devaluing the card. I do see that someone clearly went in on Change of Heart. That has the ultra rare original print out of Metal Raiders. So first edition Metal Raiders, I think, is always going to be a little bit better than these new Secret Pharaohs rares, but who knows? Mirror Force, interesting. And then you can see that some of them, like Millennium Eyes Restrict, haven't even seen a single sale on TCG Player. So it seems like the community is not a huge fan of these things, but let me know what you guys think. I just spent 5 minutes talking about them, but this is probably the biggest part because this is a new rarity, excluding sort of the quote-unquote misprint versions of the God cards, which came out of King's Court. One thing to note is that you see very few listings on these things, and something like Obelisk is selling for more than its current market price. Same thing with Slifer. So you really do want to keep your eyes on these things because specifically the Secret Pharaohs rares, actually I think all the Secret Pharaoh rares are only in North America. So again, there might be very limited numbers of these things, and that's the interesting part. I don't like the rarity, and they're hard to pull, but if they're only in North America, and the sets weren't ordered to oblivion, there might be very few of these things to go around. So it's an interesting discussion to be had. Next up, we have the United We Stand promo, the stay-at-home promo. You can see that there's one at $300 or so, and then you can see that it really starts creeping up in value. You're not seeing a whole lot of these things at the lower values. This is actually the same exact listing. I don't know why eBay has it twice. I think one of them is a sponsored listing, but regardless, moving on. Essentially, you have very few of these. You can see that this is currently, there's only one in stock. Who knows how many the seller actually has, but it's really sort of gone off the market in seemingly an organic way, and that's something to note because there aren't many of this card out there. If you look up the circulation, I think the wiki says that there are 1,000 of them, but keep in mind only 150 were given out in North America out of the supposed 300 winners that could happen, and that's because it first came out in North America. People didn't really know that it was coming out, and so only 150 people entered into the giveaway. And because of that, there technically should only be 850 of these things in circulation across the world. And this is going to be something that's harder to take out of people's hands because they have some attachment to it. They won it from the giveaway. And over the past 2 years since it's come out, a lot of these things have been on the market. But I'm noticing that fewer and fewer listings are appearing. They're starting to disappear. And after this specific $300 listing, you really don't see many of these things out there. And you go to TCG Player, you have 6 listings of this card. 700 is the lowest price, and so there was a sale for 900 back in August. That seems a little high, but you really start seeing this thing come off the market. There aren't many of this thing out there. It's definitely more rare than something like any specific Starlight rare. Probably way more rare than any specific Starlight rare. At 3 figures currently in circulation, and so it begs the question, when's the correct time to pick this thing up? As you may or may not know, I have a number of these because I think this is a historic card. So I want to fully disclose that I have a position on these things, but who knows where this thing ends up. Now getting into more set-oriented cards, we have Deck Devastation Virus. You can see sort of this thing had a meteoric rise to value because it's playable. There was one recently bought. But you look at near mints, limbs are 230. First edition, you're looking at 385 if you don't want a German copy. So these things are quite expensive, and these sort of middle era Yu-Gi-Oh sets, specifically Soul of the Duelist and Flaming Eternity, really were not printed all that much because it was sort of in the dead era of Yu-Gi-Oh. There wasn't anything airing because it was sort of the tail end of Duel Monsters. Duel Monsters had finished, but Yu-Gi-Oh! GX hadn't come out yet. And so these sort of sets, I think, weren't printed as much with the exception of Rise of Destiny. And so you see that these prices are really sticking because there aren't a whole lot of these things in circulation. Now, circling back to those Secret Pharaoh rares, could something like that happen where there just aren't a lot of these things printed and, they disappear off the market because there is organic demand? Who knows? Next up, we have Mystical Space Typhoon out of Astral Pack 8 Ultimate Rare. You can see that this thing over the past 3 months has done nothing but climb and climb and climb and climb. The yearly trend, actually, you see that it was really, really climbing recently as well. Now, this is one of the most iconic spell cards of all time in a very beautiful rarity in Ultimate Rare, out of a set in Astral Pack 8 that was not printed a whole lot. Notice a common denominator here that we're talking about is that when sets aren't printed a lot, even these rarities that might not be too difficult to pull, it doesn't matter. If you only see 100,000 booster boxes, if you get one of them out of every 1,000 booster boxes, I'm not talking specifically about this card, but something like a Starlight Rare, you're only looking at 100 of those in circulation. Now, for something like a Starlight Rare, I think the actual number is what? It's one out of every 25 booster boxes for any given Starlight Rare, for Starlight Rare in general, and then there are 5 Starlight Rares usually, so it's one out of every 125 booster boxes. I would assume that there are more than 100,000 booster boxes printed, so you get way more than 1,000 of these things out there, but who knows? Next up, we have Kuriboh. This is a card I haven't looked at in quite some time. You can see there's some damaged copies under 100, but after that, it really starts going up in price. Near mint on limbs looking at $300, and the near mint first at $350. So, interesting card, very beautiful one, an iconic one from the GX era. I really wish that Konami USA would embrace Kuriboh more. In Japanese, you have the winking Kuriboh, and Kuriboh also as the Prismatic Secrets, which are essentially equivalent to Starlight Rares out of the Prismatic Art Collection 1. And so I'd like to see something like this with the winking Kuriboh done in a new rarity. I don't know why they keep printing, Dark Magician Girl for every new rarity, or, Rhoda or Blackluster Soldier of Chaos. Give some other cards that have some collectible, people want to collect them in these new rarities. I get that there's an original print Ultimate, but other than that, there aren't any sort of super high rarities for Kuriboh, especially the winking version. You don't really see anything besides I think it was a Jump promo, Ultra Rare. So that's something to consider, Konami, if you're watching this, which I assume you're not. There's one other point I wanted to make, but I guess we'll move on because I just forgot it. Next up, we have another card that I love, Mobius the Frost Monarch Ultimate. You can see that a couple sold on the Bonus Bucks day. There's one near mint first edition. Looking at the near mints, you can get them for 90, and then it's up to first edition, you're looking at 170. This seller has some suspect feedback rating, but Plano Trade X, this is one of the best, if not the best, sellers on TCG Player. Incredible seller, really, really good. And then after that, you really start seeing it go up. There aren't many of these things on the market. Keep that in mind. These middle era sets, things like Soul of the Duelist, ton of them are not. You don't see these things on the market. In near mint first edition very frequently. Next up, this is just a cool one. I really like this card. I love the Neos Fusions. I'm a GX guy. Even though I don't collect them because the prices just ballooned during the lockdowns and stuff over the past 2 years. You can see that there's one moderately played unlimited for $50. I should have bought this back when there were bonus bucks on Friday, but I missed it, so I'm not going to buy it now. You can see that the first editions start to creep up. You see a near mint on limb for 240. And then if you're looking for first edition near mint, there are 2 copies currently out there. There's one at $1,000 and one at $1,500. Strike of Neos, a set that I don't think was printed a whole lot in first edition out of those booster boxes, specifically not in hobby. And that's something to keep in mind because my understanding is that the Air Neos Ultimate Rare is very, very difficult to get because it's one of the lowest population graded GX cards that is a chase in 10 because it's just hard to get out of the pack. There aren't many of the booster boxes, and it's not in great condition out of the pack. So that's something to keep in mind. This is an awesome card for sure. This is another really cool one of my favorites. But there's another discussion to be had about this thing. This thing has spiked again in price. Looking at the yearly, there is one other spike in price. It sort of cooled off, and then there's another one right now that's starting to cool off again. Um, I have a playset of this thing. I'm considering selling because it's currently 74. Beautiful prize card reprint in Secret Rare, and it was short printed out of Battles of Legend Armageddon, which is now a pretty expensive box. But when you compare it to something like Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos out of Heroes Revenge, Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge, excuse me, this card has done nothing but sort of flatline in price, basically. And that's largely because you can see you can get near mint first editions for $46 despite the market price being 60. They just printed this in other rarities, like for example Ultimate Rare, there's a Ghost Rare, there's now this Secret Pharaoh's Rare, as I was talking about earlier. And so when you look at Chaos Emperor, if this thing gets an Ultimate Rare, I'm going to dump my Secret Rares for sure, right? That's already a reprint of sort of a prize card, and I think the Ultimate Rare would look a lot better, so I'm going to dump them. And so it's a question of, should I dump it now when it's, at its highest, assuming that there's going to be an Ultimate Rare printing, which who knows if there will be, because this originally had a prize card printing. They've done it before with Crush Card, where the first printing was prize card, and then they end up Ultimate Raring it. Who knows if they'll do the same, especially because this has some competitive play. I'd love to see it in Ultimate Rare, but it's a question of, should I sell them now, because it might be hard to get them back. I have a feeling that it's going to come back down after they stop being playable, but who knows? Let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Watomarmelon. As always, use the eBay link in the description. Helps me out tremendously, but peace out.